Hi class. All right, let's go over our first lesson, which is going to be covering chapters 1 and 2. We're going to be talking about the communication model. We're going to be talking about ethnocentrism a little bit and different types of communication. But before I go into that, I want to talk about why we should study communication in the first place. I mean, why even take this course? I know I linger under no delusions that all of you have this burning desire to learn more about communication. I know that most of you, if not all of you, are taking this for a prerequisite so you can graduate, and that's totally fine. But a lot of times people go into this class thinking, man, I don't know if I'm going to need communication. I'm going to computers, or I'm going into the health profession. I'm not going to be out there giving speeches. Well, the truth is that no matter what field you want to go into, whether you're going into medicine or whether you're going into education or business or computers, you still need to have strong communication skills. In fact, if you go to monster.com, one of the first keywords they look for is strong communication skills. When employers are out there looking for resumes, those are keywords that they look for on resumes. They want to know if you're a good communicator. Monster.com has also ranked communication skills as the #1 skill required to succeed in business. So it's really important when it comes to finding a job. When it comes to actually keeping your job and succeeding in your job, they've done lots of studies, qualitative studies, where they've looked at teams and they've looked at individuals, and they've said, what makes these individuals succeed and these individuals not succeed? These people always get the contracts, these people don't get the contracts. A lot of times it boils down to communication skills. There was a big study just a few years ago where they found that teams who communicate effectively with one another and also with clients tend to outperform other teams who were not such good communicators by 3 to 1. Okay, so it's a big deal to have good, strong communication skills no matter what field you're going into. Even if you say, I don't believe it, I'm going to hide behind a computer, I'm going to work from home, I don't have to have good, strong communication skills for my job. The fact is, if you have a family member or you have friends, you'll probably have to give either a best man speech, a maid of honor speech, a eulogy, a toast, and you don't want to be paralyzed when that time comes. You don't want to live in fear of giving a speech. The chairman of the communication department where I went to school, he had his PhD in speech communication, but his father went to college for years, just worked and saved and scraped by and really just tried to support his family and go to school at the same time so he could get his degree. And it all came down to his last class, which was speech. And you know what? He never graduated after all that work because he was so scared of giving speeches. He just felt like he couldn't do it. And I promise you that you can do it. This is an important skill, a helpful skill. So even if you're taking this class as a prerequisite, it's still a class that can be really helpful for you if you'll let it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and jump into the lesson for today now that we know how important communication is. And we're going to talk first about 4 different types of communication, okay? And the first one is intrapersonal. I'm doing something you're not supposed to do, which is talking with my back to the camera. The first one is intrapersonal communication, and that's communicating within yourself. Talking to yourself, debating with yourself. How many times have you gotten angry at someone or something and you didn't say what you wanted to say, and as soon as you get in the car, you have that whole conversation out? And you might pull up next to someone and you're yelling and screaming and letting them have it. No one else is in the car with you, but you're still talking. That's intrapersonal communication. Intrapersonal communication also happens when we're reasoning stuff out in our minds. So if you're going to a 4-year college after this, or you're deciding whether or not to take a job, you might be sitting there thinking through in your mind what you're going to do. That's a type of intrapersonal communication. Interestingly, I found out recently that some people have inner dialogues where they speak in full, complete sentences in their minds, and some people don't. Some people just kind of think in images and they just think of things as they say them. That's me. I'm the second type of person, but my husband has a full-blown inner dialogue going all day long. Which one are you? Just curious. The second type of communication is interpersonal communication. Interpersonal communication is communication between two people, okay? You and a friend, you and a significant other, you and a parent, one-on-one communication with another person, all right? The next type we're looking at is small group. Small group communication is 3 to 20 people for the most part. Sometimes it's defined as 3 to 12 people, but for our textbook, it defines it as 3 to 20 people. And it's talking about a group where you can have relationships that are individual with each person in the group, and you can also have a group personality as a whole. So if you think about it, you might have several groups of friends and they might all have different personalities as a group. If you're a part of a band or a club, they can be totally different. And a lot of you would not bring the band that you're a part of home to meet your family group, right? You would not bring them to your family reunion. Or maybe you have friends that you play video games with or fantasy sports or whatever. You would not want them to come home and meet your grandparents. It's a different group dynamic, right? So that's small group communication, and we're going to talk about that a little bit at the end of the semester. The last one I'm going to mention is mass communication. All right, and that's anything over 20. So this is 3 to 20, this is 21 and up, this is 2, and this is 1. Okay, those are 4 different types of communication that I want you to be aware of, and it might pop up on your final exam, hint, hint. I'm just going to make sure the camera's still rolling because I can't see the other side of it. Okay, I think we're still good. So let's go ahead and look at the main thing I want to talk about today, which is the communication model. Now, the communication model is a big deal for this class because we're going to refer back to it a lot. And it's one of the reasons I wanted to do an in-person, or not in-person, but face-to-face kind of video with you. A lot of my lectures are going to happen with a PowerPoint. You might see me in a little square down in the corner, but I wanted to be able to draw the communication model while I describe it to you, okay? Because it's something that we use a lot in the communication field, but it's also something that you can look at and see it play out every single day in your regular life. Okay, so the communication model starts off with 2 communicators. This would be a interpersonal interaction, what I'm about to draw, but you could also picture one person on one side and then lots of people on the other side, and it would still play out the same way. Okay, so this would be one communicator. This would be another communicator. And there might be a glare here on the board. I'm sorry, my husband's a science teacher and I'm recording in his classroom. So if there's a glare on the board, I apologize. Hopefully you can see all this okay. So we start off this process with 2 communicators for right now, okay? And let's say that these are 2 people, they're going out to talk, and the medium or the channel is going to be face-to-face. The medium or the channel, it can be referred to different ways, that describes the way that people are communicating. So face-to-face versus over the computer versus through text message, things like that. Now you might think, does the channel really influence our communication that strongly? Well, it really can. If you think about it, let's say that you were going to, you were dating someone, all right? Let's say you had a relationship with someone, and that relationship lasted at least a year. And let's say that person one day meets up with you, they say, hey, let's go get coffee, and they sit down across the table from you and they say, I'm really sorry, but I think that we need to break up, okay? Now you're going to be sad and you're going to be maybe heartbroken, but you can probably respect that person because they met with you, they talked to you face to face, and they were honest with you. Now, let's say that after a year of dating, they shoot you a text message that says, hey, I'm really sorry, but we need to break up. I really respect you. I still want to stay friends. That's going to have a different meaning, right? You're probably not going to have a lot of warm, fuzzy feelings towards that person. Now, let's say that instead of face-to-face and instead of a text message, that person says on their Facebook page or on their Snapchat or whatever, they say, hey, we're done. I really respect you. I think you're a great person. I hope we can stay friends, but let's break up. And they change their relationship status to single. Are you going to be like, wow, that person really respects me, and I think we should stay friends? Probably not. You're going to be really angry. So the medium or the channel that we use to get our message across, it influences how the message is received. Okay? So you start off with your two communicators, and I'm just going to write communicator here and communicator here. Oop. You've got your medium or channel, and this line that goes across the top is the message. This is the message that the speaker, the first communicator, thinks in their mind and wants to convey to the other person, okay? Now this thing across the bottom, this line, is feedback. This is what this person is saying or doing in response. Now that does not mean they're talking over the speaker or the first communicator in this scenario. They're not talking at the same time the other person is talking. Instead, it usually has to do with nonverbal cues, okay? It has to do with nonverbal communication. And so that might be nodding, smiling, frowning, making little noises like or oh, okay, things like that. Those are types of feedback that are happening in the communication process. So this is the message, this is the feedback, that's the medium or channel, the way that they're communicating. It goes right across the middle. And then around this whole situation, or around this whole interaction, we have something called the situation. All right, the situation is where this is all taking place. It's basically the setting where something is happening. And so sometimes the situation can also have an impact on the messages that are being sent and received. So let's say that you are with that significant other and you guys did not break up. Let's say that you stay together and that person says, I want to ask that person to marry me. They want to ask you to marry them, okay? Now, if they take you out to Ruth Chris Steakhouse and it's all quiet, they have nice fancy music in the background, they have candlelight, you're both dressed up, and that person goes down on one knee and says, will you marry me? That's one type of situation, and it might impact the answer that you give. Let's say though that you guys are at Buffalo Wild Wings and it is the biggest UFC fight of the year. It's Conor McGregor making his big comeback, and just at the moment where the knockout happens and they declare Conor the winner, which they always do, then your significant other goes down on one knee, and with everyone screaming around you, they go, will you marry me? That's a much different kind of setting, and it's going to impact the way that you think. It might even impact the answer that you give. Some of us might prefer to be proposed to at Buffalo Wild Wings, while others might like a more fancy setting. Okay, so that would be the situation that you're in, is where it's happening. Who's speaking, who's listening, what messages are being sent and received, and where it's happening. So this is the communication process, and you can see this play out every day, right? You can see this play out in a lot of different situations. Does it always work perfectly? No. That is because of something that goes right down the middle of this process. It cuts right down there, and it's called interference or noise. Okay, interference or noise. And noise or interference is anything that happens that keeps your message from being sent and received in the message in the way that you want it to be sent or received, okay? So let's say that two people are talking and someone is doing construction work in the background. This person might not hear what the other person is saying, or they might misunderstand what the other person is saying. And that can cause problems not only in their interactions, but also in the relationship itself. Now let's say that nothing is happening in the background, nothing's happening in their situation, in their setting, but let's say that this person's talking and this person has not had lunch yet, and it's already 3 o'clock and they're starving, right? All they can think about is how they want to eat. that's going to have an impact on the way that they're receiving messages. They're probably not going to be paying close attention to what the other person has to say. That's a type of interference as well. Now, anything that's happening in your environment on the outside, whether it's noise, like actual physical noise that you're hearing, or if it's something that's distracting, like during coronavirus, what became the hardest thing when it came to communication? Masks, right? If you already had a hard time understanding people, now it's virtually impossible because you can't see their lips move. Those are types of external interference. External interference, okay? Anything that's happening in your environment that's keeping you from listening and paying attention and receiving the messages the way that you're supposed to receive them and understand them. This might come down to pen clicking for some people. I know that some people are really bothered by loud chewing, right? If you're talking to someone and someone's chewing really loudly nearby, that might distract you and keep you from engaging in that situation. That's external interference, things that are happening in your environment. Then, you probably guessed it, there's internal interference. That's anything that's happening in your mind or your body that's keeping you from paying attention and understanding messages. So maybe you're tired, maybe you're hungry, maybe you got a phone call right before class begins and you might come in here and go, man, I can't wait to learn communication. I can't wait to log on today and watch lectures. I'm gonna pretend that's how you guys think. You might be really intending to pay close attention, but before class, you just got a text message, and that text message said, we need to talk, and it came from your significant other. Or maybe it says, call me immediately, it's very important, and it came from your parents. And then you call, no one answers. So the whole class, it's not like you're gonna be sitting there going, oh well, I have to learn communication. No, you're gonna be thinking about that text message. You're gonna be worried about what's wrong and what's going on. And so that is internal interference. It's happening up here and it's keeping you from focusing on the conversation or the situation at hand. All right, so that is the communication model for you. You have it working very well, and then you have that noise or interference that cuts through and makes it very difficult to try to pay attention and understand what's happening. All right, I'm going to go over more lecture in just a minute. We're going to talk about ethnocentrism and we're going to talk about listening.